Welcome to the Salt Stands Alone podcast. My name is Hank. With me is nobody. It's just me. I stand alone. And I'm here to give a little check-in, a little quick podcast update. So we are now into a world where, with the exception of a Christmas special that we pre-recorded, me and Ben are basically out of backlog. So, to keep things appearing in this feed, I'm going to be doing more solo podcasts going forward, just to keep something in the feed. And I'm not 100% sure of the form it's going to take, because solo podcasting is weird and hard and not as fun. But I want to do it, and I want to try and get better at it, and I want to find different ways to make it more interesting for myself. So, if you have any thoughts or suggestions for things I could talk about, throw them at me. I'm more open to suggestions for the podcast than ever before. If there's ever a thing you wanted me to get to, I no longer have someone I can throw out and consume my favorite things regularly in the same way. So I'm more willing to just check stuff out currently. So leave a YouTube comment, send me a Discord message. Those are probably the best ways. Hit me up on Bluesky or whatever. Yeah. But we do have a Christmas movie commentary for a Dragon Ball movie. We did for fun, and we have like so many plans for episodes to record. We just haven't been able to get recording time. It's not for lack of topics of things to talk about that we're not recording. Yeah, so my initial thought to start out with a thing to talk about for this podcast is I've been trying to get back. I've been trying once again to get into old school Judge Dredd comics, because I love Dredd, the movie. It's that's probably like that's my primary in on Dredd. It's in the backwards, not cool way. And then I got really into the 2012 IDW Judge Dredd series, which I feel a little weird about, because it's kind of a I feel like it's a bad take to say that's your favorite, not a 2000 AD thing. Like, it's not cool. Like, it's definitely not the cool take, because Judge Dredd is such a uniquely British thing with 2000 AD, and that IDW run is way more, it's like the New York version of Dredd. So it's just a different beast. But it has the way the ongoing narrative builds in that thing, in that run, which is like 30 issues or something. I really liked. And it was in that time when I was reading I was reading everything I could get my hands on. But during that time, there was a free comic book day issue they put out of Judge Dredd Classics, which was a colorized reprint of a classic Judge Dredd story. And it's the first Judge Death story, which is also the first appearance of Judge Anderson, who's in the Dredd movie. And that comic fucking owns. It's so good. Like, for a comic from, I think it's originally from 1981, it reads much more it reads much more modern than a lot of other comics you'll read from then. It's less wordy. It's the focus is more on good. The art is really good. And so that put it in my head that, like, oh, Judge Dredd is rules. Old Dredd is great. This is like perfect classic like it's a perfect hard sci-fi idea where there's this judge from an alternate universe where life is illegal shows up, and you have to psychically imprison him. Is the only way to stop him because he's like a weird ghost, and that's so fun and weird and comic booky, and I loved it. But every other time, my initial approach to just checking out Dredd was to download a collection of like the earliest stuff. Like what are we starting with here? And I just find it when I'm looking at that stuff, and that Judge Dredd story is not that far in, but the earliest stuff is kind of unreadable to me. Like I look at it and my eyes glaze over. The art doesn't grab me. There's too many words, and it just all feels very British in like a way of like there are probably jokes here that I'm just not getting. And like they're just like weird ugly caricatures of things that I'm just like, that doesn't hit for me. It doesn't speak. And it doesn't have any of the it's way more like it doesn't have any of the ongoing narrative building stuff that is kind of what I'm looking for. I don't know what I'm looking for. But the thing I realized, so this time I did that again. I ran the same playbook recently. I'm just looking like I know there's good stuff here. How is it? And part of it is a podcast, a comic book podcast I listen to. Age of Iron Comics just did a Judge Dredd episode where they did the story Necropolis, which is a later story. And I was like, man, Judge Dredd is cool. So in the process of this, I did read Necropolis, which is a good narrative, and the art is good, but it doesn't speak to me the way that first Judge Dredd story did, I guess. It's not as classic. It's more. It doesn't feel like the thing. Like where I want the source for where this thing came from, where it's good, and that story is like a weird one where it's deep in continuity. Dredd is like out of the city. There's this other clone of Dredd who's wearing the Dredd outfit the whole story, and then Dredd shows up with where his face is all fucked up and he's just in a hat, and then he eventually reclaims. It's like a reclaiming of this is why Dredd is the best kind of story. But I want the more primary text, the baser level thing. So I go back to the archives, and the thing I found in this dive is that I don't like classic Judge Dredd stuff. I like Brian Bolland's art. Brian Bolland draws that Anderson story. He draws another Judge Dredd story that brings back Anderson. That's fucking incredible. And you get all the Judge Death's Dredd judges that all have their weird looks. And there are these big splash pages that are just fucking gorgeous. So I think just the thing, I just like Brian Bolland is a fucking killer. And notably, we just did on Salt Labyrinth, we did Animal Man, and Brian Bolland is the one who was drawing all those covers that are so good. That really sold that book on shelves. And that's what Brian Bolland's career mostly became. He mostly became a cover artist because he's too fucking good to. His work is too detailed to do a monthly comic regularly, really. Like the Judge Dredd, the 2000 AD classic stories, they're like 8-pagers. They're not long comics. So he's not made for the world of 22-page ongoing. So he did do some. I kind of want to read Callout 3000 or whatever that he drew. Um, but yeah, mostly it's just his covers are fucking great. And he draws the Dredd chin so fucking well. And it's like everything that I think is cool about Judge Dredd as like a character. Like I feel like it's embodied in just looking at Brian Bolland stuff for the most part. And then like obviously there's other good stuff, but this is for me, this is the primary text. This is the origin stuff from the 80s, and it just holds up really, really fucking well. So I picked up an art book of just a Brian Bolland stuff, and it's fucking gorgeous. And I love this fucking cover from the Eagle Comics reprints of Dredd, where he's like being eaten by a fucking giant, dinosaur. And he's like, Satanus, this is your last chance to surrender. He's tied to a fucking pole. Or there's another one where he's like, there's like a horde of monsters bearing down on him, and he's like standing in the corner with his gun pointed at them, saying, all right, this is your last chance. That shit's fire. There's one where he's like looking at fucking King Kong saying, for smashing biplanes, 40 years. Yeah, Eagle Comics number 4 is where he's looking at the monsters. He's come quietly or else there'll be trouble. He's just like, there's like a monstrous horde swarm thing, and he's like, you're under arrest. It's fucking funny. And that's like, that's big for me, and just understanding what it is about this thing that I think is good, because it's that thing of the hard-nosed, like the hilarity of the hard-nosed like fascist cop who's extremely like lawful neutral or whatever, in the face of just the weirdest fucked up comic book shit. Just like the silliest shit, like that is like core to it is so good, because the movie Dredd is much more grounded. But a lot of what I think is great about like a lot of the early comic stuff is how fucking weird it can be. I think that shit's fucking incredible. But Dredd is always your grounding point. He's the same. He doesn't change. I think that's really cool. What's been a little less cool has been I've been trying. So my goal is to, another one of my goals with comics is to catch up on all the Venom comics that I haven't read. Because it's basically been 10 years of Venom comics. And I think it's like more comics than he had Venom in them in the previous 20 years or whatever. Or 35 years? 40, almost 40. There've been a lot of Venom comics made in the last 10 years, and I haven't read them. So I'm started, but I'm going about it the stupid way, and I'm reading like every comic where there's like an appearance of Venom, where he's like, there's this one panel of Venom's back. Gotta read that. Which I wasn't. I mean, realistically, I haven't even been that thorough on the old stuff. Although I've read a lot of it. But I just think it's funny, and it's kind of like my in to read a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't otherwise read of catching up with comics, because I've been reading my project before this has been reading Avengers stuff. Like continuing on with Jason Aaron's run, which we did an episode on the first arc of that. And we're going to talk about some more stuff with that episode we have planned. talking about history of the Marvel Universe and some stuff Ben's checked out because of that. But I hit the King in Black event comic in Avengers, and I've like, I've done Spider Girl, and I hit the King in Black stuff there. And I was like, I need to fucking read the comics that lead up to this so I can read this event, so I like know what the fuck this thing is, because I definitely have like as a huge Venom fan, I don't fucking know who Null is. Null is all this Null shit. It's all passed me by. The world I knew. Venom is about space. Like Planet of the Symbiotes, sure, but Venom is a guy who hates Spider-Man. Come on. So I want to read that stuff so I have a more like an opinion I can talk about that's not just like not just like an emotional like dislike to it. Because that shit came up in the fucking Godzilla Spider-Man special that came out this year. And then like fucking, Godzilla gets the Venom suit and it immediately cuts to like Null, connected to Null. I'm like, why? I don't know. Maybe that stuff's good. Maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's good. And like, I haven't watched Venom 3 because fucking there's Null shit in there. I feel weird about it because it's a thing that it was like collecting every Venom comic was like my first like completionist thing with comics, where like I want all of these. I care about all these. Like before I even got into comic books, I was like, I want every Venom trading card I can get my hands on. That's important to me. That's what matters. Look at Venom. Look at him. Look at Mark Bagley drawing of Venom. Because I'm weirdly like actually not that big on Todd's original Venom stuff. It's really Mark Bagley. When Mark Bagley starts drawing, I'm like, yeah, this is Venom. This is Venom. Make him look more like a snake, because it's all snake cults all the way down. Make him like sleeker, less muscly. Because over muscly stuff never did it for me for art in stuff. In that way. But yeah, so I've been reading stuff, which has meant reading a lot of. But so I'm not even close to the dull stuff yet. I'm not close to that run, which I forget who the writer is on it because I haven't read it yet. But there's some cleanup to do first, where Flash Thompson is still Venom. And there was more here than I thought there was. I didn't know about this Venom Space Knight series. That's all about, because when I left off, they had sent Flash Thompson Venom into space as part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, which I'd read a few of those issues before I fell off. And I don't get it. I don't know why they did this. He doesn't really fit in with the team. He doesn't really have chemistry with anyone. It's so much less interesting than it like completely breaks from all the Flash Thompson stuff that was really good. Like the Flash Thompson Venom run by Rick Remender is the best Venom comics as far as I'm concerned. It's actually way better than anything fucking Eddie Brock was ever in. With Flash like dealing with alcoholism and having this fucking, homicidal suit that's like kind of brain dead because of like all stuff's been done to it, so that it can be his suit for the military or whatever when it starts out. And that shit's fucking great. There's a big crossover with where it's him, X-23, Ghost Rider. I think it's just Ghost Rider. And Red Hulk. they fight Blackheart. That series is fucking incredible. You get the fusion of Hulk with the Venom symbiote and the Spirit of Vengeance. That shit's so good. But the Flash Thompson on the Guardians thing, it doesn't. I don't get it. It doesn't. He's just there, and he's not really that involved in anything, and he doesn't really have a relationship with any of the characters. So I'm reading this fucking, and the thing is, I liked the early parts of the Bendis Guardians run. Okay, I would even say like these aren't the worst comics. These I don't fucking hate. I'm reading these comics. They're fine. I really don't get why he's so focused on this Kitty Pryde Star-Lord romance is like a big part of this run. And from what I can tell, nobody likes this pairing. It doesn't really work reading the comics. It's weird that Bendis is like once again making the main character date Kitty Pryde for no reason. I mean, other than like, Bendis fucking had a crush on Kitty Pryde when he was a kid or whatever. Like, it's the only explanation. He loves Kitty Pryde as a character, which, writers have pet characters. That's fine. And I like Kitty Pryde. It's the Star-Lord part of it that I don't get. I not only do I not like it, I know it's a thing that doesn't take off. Like, he's like trying to get them married, and as soon as he's off this book, they're never gonna fucking talk to each other again for a long time or whatever. Like, Kitty Pryde's gonna get caught up in Krakoa stuff on the Marauders. That's like completely has nothing to do with this. She's gonna become an alcoholic. Whereas here, she's like the most perfect. She gets to become like the most perfect fucking space wizard at one point. Like a celestial being. Because she's obviously she's perfect. Obviously, she's infallible. I don't know. But yeah. So that led to this Black Mirror story. Black Vortex. Which is just like, what if there were an evil space mirror? And you look at it and you get powerful, but evil, but not evil. Because characters keep going into it for like reasons. And sometimes it's like the worst. It's like just makes you mega evil. And sometimes it's fine. It's not a big deal. Some people are just built different. It just doesn't hit. It doesn't hit. It's not like the worst, but you get giant Kitty Pryde made of stars at some point because she goes in the mirror and she's just she's the best. But I don't know. Character-wise, it doesn't really work. And then there was like, I thought I was done and I thought I was out. And then I realized, oh no, there's a whole nother. It started with a new number 1, but it's still Bendis on Guardians. And Flash Thompson's still on the team. But now also Ben Grimm is on the team. And the Thing is here. And that also is just weird. And like, why? And it's this recurring idea of like, I gotta go to space to like really find myself. But like, the metaphor it's using for like going to space feels like, taking a year off to go tour Europe. It doesn't feel like an actual, like, these characters confronting their problems. It feels like they've gotten away from everything they're connected to in their lives and every like story beat you might have cared about, and now they're just like doing space shit. But like in like a cop way. Just like, oh yeah, there's like a dispute here and now we gotta go solve it. We gotta go deal with this problem. And they don't feel like bigger scale, more important problems than the characters we're dealing with on Earth. It's just you're in space now, and you're doing it with aliens that are not really characters, and a lot of it is just an excuse to be able to kill large numbers of people, and it doesn't really matter because they're not humans and it's not on Earth. So you can just blow up a planet and go for shock value, and it, like, who cares? Because it's not real. And I'm just feeling a way about it currently. Because I was also another thing I was reading was the Phoenix comic about Jean Grey the Phoenix, which comes in the wake of the end of the Krakoa era, which which I don't really care about, because the Krakoa era, I loved Hoxpox, but everything I've kind of seen about where it went from there, it's not that interesting. Like, Hickman didn't get to finish his story, which I wanted to see through, but I kind of got kneecapped in, like, the first arc. So the narrative doesn't really compel me. And at the end, Kieran Gillen takes over, and he is one of my favorite comic book writers. Like, he wrote his first X-Men run is one of my favorites. But the retread just doesn't compel me. But I care about Hope Summers from that early 2010s era X-Men stuff. And so she's in Krakoa stuff, but not really. Like, she's not, a main character. She just happens to be there. And there's a big thing of the end of that Krakoa era story. I forget what it was called. That, like, wraps up her story, and she gets, like, reabsorbed into the Phoenix. She dies, and it's like, this is how you wrap up a character that, like, the audience didn't care about. And, like, I'm glad it's Gillen, because Gillen, like, wrote a lot of her best stories. But it still didn't feel like a great send-off for the character. I was pretty disappointed as a fan of the character. But inherently, like, I wanted to care about, new Jean Grey Phoenix stuff. And it was that same thing of, like, she's out in space doing important space stuff, in quotes. And, like, it's just not that compelling or interesting. It's not connected to characters. It's exactly the thing I don't like about X-Men. That comes from Claremont era, where he's like, I love Dirty Pair, so I'm going to have space opera stuff happen in X-Men, and disconnect it from all the themes that make X-Men good. Like the living in a world that fears and hates us. What if we just didn't have any of that? And I'm like, but you're leaving behind the stuff that makes the comic good. You're leaving behind the juice, the stuff where there's drama, where there's, characters connecting with each other and being in conflict and struggling. And now we're in space. And, like, now a planet blew up. And, like, like, the Phoenix casually blowing up a planet is, like, the thing that, like, completely derails Jean Grey's existence as a comic book character, because it happens, it's like a throw-off thing, but then, like, editorially, there are people who are like, no, she fucking blew up a planet, she has to fucking suffer, so then Jean Grey has to fucking die, go away, because she blew up a planet. And then the Phoenix Force thing becomes, like, the retcon to, like, let her character come back from having killed a planet without, like, having the baggage of having done that. So anyway, comic book stuff. And that's like the moment where Chris Claremont like loses control over the X-Men story, which had been his to tell since he started writing it. And from that point on, he was still telling story stuff, but he did not have the same level of control over every aspect of it. Like in his world, Cyclops married what's Madeline Pryor, and that was his happy ending, and he left and retired. And then in the world of we need Cyclops and the original X-Men back, Cyclops immediately abandons his wife and child to go hang out with Jean Grey as soon as she's back. Which not a great look for that guy. But you know what? When they made him a worse person, he became a more interesting character. So, you know. Later, when they make Cyclops into Magneto, that's when I care about Cyclops. Maybe has more specific ideas about changing the world. Much more interesting than being a guy who, follows orders or is a good soldier and then fucks off. Anyway, ongoing comics. They're a weird thing because sometimes the narratives you care about, they only exist for a window, and then they're just gone, and the thing changes and it becomes a different thing that maybe you don't care about it the same way. That's just life. Things change. But I still want to know about Venom stuff, I guess. I don't know. I read Venom's Space Knight. That's like the solo book about Flash Thompson in space. And it's all those same problems that I was talking about before. You've just made him a space cop now. And he doesn't really have, characters that he has any connection with. The characters that they set up kind of get introduced as gags, and then they're just hanging around. But then the end of it, and they purify. There was a thing in the Bendis arc where the Venom symbiote gets purified. I think it's the first time you get the name of the Kindle. I can't even remember the shit. The symbiote's home planet, where they're from, you get their name, and you find out we're not evil, and the Venom symbiote gets purified because it was only evil because of all the evil, feelings in the hearts of people it bonded with. And then by the end of that Space Knights, and then a couple issues later into that Space Knight series, the Space Knight series has to start with that premise because it's a different writer starting with where Bendis put it. But by the end of that writer's arc, it's no. The Venom symbiote actually kind of fucked up. Starts becoming more and more fucked up on its own. It's a huge issue. And then also it brings up the fact that, Flash Thompson just kind of abandoned people in his life back on Earth, and it's bad back there, and he should probably go home. And I'm yeah, this is what I'm saying the whole time. So it actually kind of got there to fucking finally somebody was fucking using their head, paying attention, remembering he had this other girl he was hanging out with who had a symbiote who he was trying to help deal with that shit, and he just fucking abandoned her. That's fucked up. But then this second half of the Guardians run, I realized actually takes place before that, so I kind of had to go back and double back on that. So I don't know what happens next. Eventually, Eddie Brock's going to get this fucking symbiote back. Right now, he was in this Carnage series that I also read, where Carnage is dealing with Cthulhu powers and stuff. And that was okay. I also never had... I also feel like I should read all the Carnage comics, but I definitely don't have the attachment to them that I do to Venom comics. It's like, Carnage is just a guy who murders people. Like, it's not that complicated. It's not that interesting, but it is what it is. You know, you get what it says on the tin. Carnage is gonna murder people. That one has Eddie Brock in it as like this military group's like secret weapon they don't want to use. So the whole time Venom's like, "Come on, let me use the symbiote," and they're like, "No, never." And he's like, "Come on." It's not the most compelling comics in the world. Sometimes the comics are mid. Like, not offensive, not bad, just like fine. And like, nobody else is going to tell me about Venom Space Knight. It's not interesting enough for anybody else to talk about this. To talk about the Bendis Guardians run. Like, it's just kind of boring. And like, not that good. It's not that bad. The standout part of the second half after the #1 reboot of Where I Am Now is because Star-Lord is like the king of his planet or whatever, so he doesn't have time to be on the team. The story starts with just fucking Kitty Pryde is in the Star-Lord outfit wearing the cool mask. And I'm like, you did it. You solved it. You solved the Guardians of the Galaxy. Just get rid of Star-Lord. And then he's like the whole story is about him again. But that premise of now Kitty Pryde is Star-Lord and she gets the cool mask, I'm about it. That's 10 out of 10. Man, I need to learn how to do just talking straight for like 40 minutes is hard. It is a similar thing to when I do the solo streams at the standing desk, where like I feel like my sinuses are like all acting up. Like, it's just like my body is like all the stress of talking this much. It's so much harder than doing a show with someone else, you know? So that's some stuff. I talked for a while. I talked about the comic book stuff. I had to get to the feeling of just reading some stuff that's mid. And sometimes that's what you do. Whereas like a lot of my comic book reading is mostly stuff that I just think is fire. Like, I'm mostly looking for 10 out of 10s. And this project is like, all right, we're reading the fucking shit that's like not that good. That's not interesting, but it exists, and I kind of want to read it. Because maybe there's good stuff in there. I did get to some good Venom panels eventually. At the end of Venom Star Knight. The art changed. Suddenly the art was much better. I never would have known. You know? Anyway. I'm also playing some video games. Shinobi was fucking great. Very pretty. That game's so fucking pretty. And it plays well. And it's just fun. Just what if a video game was just fun, you know? What if it was just good? You like ran to the right. You fought stuff. It looked good. There were some secrets to find that made you run left sometimes. Whoa. Got to unlock some doors. It's just good. And I'm playing Windswept, which is just Donkey Kong Country, but with like added mechanic. Like, what if the two characters were more unique than even Dixie and Diddy Kong are in Country 2 or whatever? Like, not only can one of the characters hover, like, what if the other character had a bunch of their unique moves? that you have to remember. So while you're trying to go fast through a level, you're like, all right, what was the button combination to do fucking this move? How do I do this? What do I do here? There's just like more, it takes more brain power maybe than you want. But once you get there, it's so fun. And the vibes are chill. And then I'm doing Demon School. And that game is weird because it's way more combat focused than like it presents itself like it's going to be a Persona game with like characters in a school and there's like a schedule. But it's really not that kind of game. It's way more of like, here is a series of tactical puzzles. Because it's not even like really, it's not like a fire. They're way more of like, defeat this many enemies in 3 turns or whatever kind of thing. And like, after the first turn, then we'll spawn in a bunch more. And you can like rewind every step of the way. Like if you take an action, you can immediately rewind it and rewind like back to the start. You can just restart the fight. And it's about, trying to get that A rank of killing the certain number of enemies in the right amount of time and getting to the other side of the field. And it's that over and over again. And it's fun. But it's a much different thing and much lighter on narrative. I mean, there is a narrative. It's like a 40-hour game, apparently. So I assume, like, this builds more. But the characters are pretty broad and archetypical so far. Which is good, because, like, it quickly gets you into. Like, there are story games where you're, like, sitting in dialogue for a long time. And this doesn't do that. Like, you get a little bit, and then we're going at the next thing. You get a little bit, you're going on to the next thing. Which is nice. But it also hasn't, like, fully hooked me. Like, I'm not, like, super in. I'm just like, this is fun. Is where I'm currently at with it. So, I need to, spend more time with it, but also, you only have so many hours in a day. But yeah, I think that's a podcast. And again, so I want to build a list of topics I could talk about that are a little more evergreen, so that when I don't have shit from like the week media that I've consumed to talk about, I could still record a thing. So right now I have like no idea what I would do if I didn't consume stuff. And this is like backlog stuff that I'm talking about here. So yeah. I don't know. Don't know what the future holds. Hopefully me and Ben will be able to record sometime, though. Hopefully that will still happen, but it can't. There's no way it's going to happen every week moving forward, and we'll never have time to build a backlog like we did before. So things change. Yeah. But thanks for hanging out while I rambled. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you got something out of this. Let me know. Give me thoughts. I'm definitely feel uneasy about doing this show and would like to figure out ways to make it better. Peace.